Hello, everyone. You are very welcome to our LLM in Law and Digital Innovation. My name is Lisa Dorn, and I'm the Marketing and Student Recruitment Officer for the School of Law at University of Galway. And in today's webinar, we are joined by two of our programme directors, Dr. Abigail Rikas and Dr. Ronan Kennedy. I suppose the format of today's webinar is a presentation, and then afterwards we will answer any questions that you may have. So I'd now like to hand you over to Dr. Abigail Rikas.
Hi, everyone. I hope that you are well today. Lisa, will you progress the slides for me? Thanks. So we're going to start with a little bit of introduction. As Lisa has just said, I am Dr. Abigail Rikas. I am a lecturer and researcher here at the University of Galway. My primary areas of research are copyright law, AI in the arts, access to culture, and video game preservation and history. I recently organized an international conference on video game preservation and the law and business of video games. I, along with Ronan, serve as a board member of the International Future of Law Association, and we recently organized a conference at Vanderbilt Law School. We meet several times a year and try to keep ourselves on the cutting edge of what the future of legal practice is going to be. And I will hand to Dr. Ronan Kennedy, who is my co-director of this program, to introduce himself.
Thanks, Abigail, and good afternoon, everybody. You're all very welcome. So a little bit about myself. I've had a long and sometimes convoluted career. So before I became a legal academic, I actually worked as a software engineer, programmer, webmaster, systems administrator, and I bring a lot of that knowledge and experience and interest to my legal career. So I have done research on information technology law, intellectual property law, online copyright infringement. I also have a sideline in environmental law. That's not as relevant to this program, but over the last maybe 10 years, I've built on my experience. I worked also as a researcher in the Irish courts, and I was at one point very responsible for computerization initiatives there, including electronic filing into the Supreme Court. And I have a big interest in what people call lawtech, the use of technology in legal practice and in the courts. And really it's that interest that has led to some of the research that's mentioned there. I've done other research as well, but I prepared a report for the Oireachtas, for the Irish Parliament, in 2020 on algorithms, big data and artificial intelligence in the Irish legal services market. And at around the same time started the groundwork for the creation of this master's program. I have other strings to my bow as well. As I said, a lot of engagement with the judiciary. So I will be in January a member of the Judicial Appointments Commission when that is formally established. And I'll pass you back to Abigail, who will talk to you a bit more about the university and the law school.
So the University of Galway is ranked in the top 2% of universities in the world. We have 115,000 alumni around the world. We are ranked #1 in Ireland for sustainable development, and we take our sustainability goals very seriously here in Galway. 93% of the most recently surveyed University of Galway postgraduate students are in employment or further education by March following graduation. Our current university population numbers over 19,000. 18% of those are international students coming from 122 different countries around the world. We have a very diverse student body and a fairly diverse academic staff as well. Slide, please. Galway is a wonderful small city on the west coast of Ireland. We are along the wild Atlantic Way. The air is wonderful and fresh here, but what makes Galway really special is our vibrant arts and culture environment. There's always something to do. There's always live music to hear. Students make up 20% of our population in the city. And as I mentioned, because we are such a vibrant city, we are consistently ranked highly in the top 50 student cities in the world, and we reached as high as number 7 in 2023. So it's a very, very nice, cool town to be living in while you are pursuing your studies. Slide, please. The School of Law is home to 3 world-class research centers: the Irish Centre for Human Rights, the Centre for Housing Law, Rights and Policy, and the Centre for Disability Law and Policy, as well as our world-class law school. Our law school was ranked in the top 150 law schools in the world. So we bring world-class scholars into a small city and a small community environment, giving you great access to highly, highly, highly effective and innovative legal education. And this year, we were actually named Law School of the Year at the Dye and Durham Irish Law Awards, which was a big coup. We were very, very delighted to be the Irish Law School of the Year. I'll pass you now to my colleague, Ronan.
Thanks, Abigail. So what's this program about? Well, you're probably aware of the ways in which technology is changing the world around you. The fact that we're having this webinar online, and it wouldn't surprise me that some of you are not on mobile devices or on phones. Technology is changing the way we live our lives all the time. It is also changing the way in which lawyers work, in which the law is practiced, in which the courts operate. In more recent years, there's a lot of talk, a lot of hype maybe, about artificial intelligence and how artificial intelligence is going to change everything. Some predict that there will no longer be a need for lawyers or for judges because AI will do everything. I'm not sure that's true. I think it's probably more true to say that it's not that we won't need lawyers, but we will need lawyers who know how to use technology and know how to use AI. And that is what this program is primarily about. It's focusing on the uses of technology for legal practice, and looking at the new questions that that raises, also looking at some relatively long-standing questions that technology brings for law. In other words, looking at the regulation of technology, questions like data protection, for example, or the liability of online websites. But a lot of it is about looking at how the law is being changed by technology, but not just looking at the role of technology. There are other factors that are changing the world of legal practice. A lot of our graduates now are going into careers as in-house lawyers. There are a lot of legal work is now being outsourced or offshored. In other words, it's not all being done by lawyers working in traditional law firms. They are contracting with lawyers in other jurisdictions, often at cheaper rates, so that work can be done there. That's all being mediated by technology as well. It's changing the nature of legal careers. And there's also, I think, a need for new and different skills because lawyers are increasingly required to be partners and collaborators rather than neutral advisors. So all of these sort of winds of change are moving through the law. And really what this program is asking, what will law be like in the future? So it's these new technologies, new skills, new need for business awareness. And what we've done in this program is we brought together these various disciplines. Not only do we have a world-class law school, we have a world-class business school, we have world-class computer scientists here. So we're bringing together law, information systems, data analytics, and we're really asking the question, what is the practice of law going to be like in 5 or 10 years, and how do we produce graduates that are ready for that new world? So this program is for law graduates, for those who want to go on to relatively traditional careers in the law as legal advisors, but also for those coming from a business or a STEM background who are interested in a career in law tech, not necessarily as lawyers, but as legal technologists, as project managers, as data analysts, working with lawyers, which is becoming quite a developing and perhaps lucrative field. And also, there may be some of you who are already legal practitioners who are aware of these changes that I'm talking about, and who are thinking they need to improve their skills, maybe want to change their careers, want to move out of just being lawyers into being legal technologists too. We see a lot of lawyers now starting startup businesses in law tech. So this program might be a good fit for them. And all of that is placed in an international perspective. Obviously, Ireland is still a EU member state, so looking at a lot of European Union law. There's a lot of European Union law here. The General Data Protection Regulation, the new AI Act, lots of other things around cybersecurity and so on that are quite important. But bringing broader perspectives from the US, looking at what's happening in South America. Australia is doing a lot of work around this as well. Really trying to place all of this in an international context. So that, in a nutshell, is what the program is about. If I could have the next slide, please. Yeah, so why should lawyers be interested in these questions? Well, the new technologies bring with it the potential for greater efficiency. You can get what you're already doing more quickly, which saves you time, maybe saves you money, maybe enables you to charge the same amount of money for doing the same work in less time, so you can perhaps make more money, or perhaps enables you to take on more additional work. More efficiency generally is good. It has benefits for staff in those firms generally, because it allows you more flexibility. You can maybe work from home, you can have more flexible working hours. There's a lot of demand now from new and experienced staff also for that kind of flexibility, that kind of expectation that the work can be integrated into one's life in a way that brings greater work-life balance. That can also bring its own challenges, and those are the kind of things we'll explore in the workplace. Sometimes you can't get away from work. Are there downsides to this? These are the kinds of things that we will be talking about in the program, so that you can make informed decisions about whether or not to adopt these technologies. But the thing that I think is most interesting is the third item on the slide there, and that is the possibility of developing novel products and services, because that's where the technology is potentially transformative. It's not just that you're doing the same thing more quickly, but that you're actually able to do something that is entirely new, that hasn't been done before. So perhaps that gives you a competitive advantage. Perhaps that allows you to develop a whole new revenue stream, a whole new type of firm, a whole new career, perhaps, because you can provide, we'll say, online services. You can advise clients even when you're asleep through some sort of AI or chatbot system, or you're able to provide online dispute resolution rather than doing everything through a conventional court, for example. So there's all kinds of new and innovative offerings that are springing up. And that's one of the things that we will be exploring in this program, is the practicalities and realities of building those. Next slide, please. Why should you, as individual students, graduates, lawyers, intending lawyers, be interested in any of this? So it's about, I suppose, tools. It's about knowing your tools, choosing the right tools, and ensuring that you are doing the right thing with your tools. So there is an expectation on lawyers as professionals to keep their skills up to date. And I think we can't deny the way in which technology is changing the context in which lawyers are operating. So I think it's therefore incumbent on all of us as lawyers to ensure that our skills are up to date. And if we are going to be working in a context where we're using online video conferencing and email, which are relatively basic tools, but if we're using data analytics, if we're using AI, that we really know and understand how those technologies work, so that we're confident in our knowledge, and that we could choose the right tool for the right job. These things are not necessarily magic. They're not going to solve all of our problems overnight. They're not going to make the challenges of being a lawyer going away. In many ways, they may mean that some of the more basic and simple work isn't there anymore. So we're working actually at a more fulfilling level, but also more challenging. But I think it's important that lawyers have the competence to choose the right tools, to know what their strengths and weaknesses are, and to look behind sometimes the the advertising hype that a vendor may have, and make good informed choices. And we also need to bear in mind that lawyers have ethical responsibilities. We ultimately have other people's best interests in our hands. We have their long-term futures in our hands, where they're working as criminal or civil or commercial lawyers. And again, this is part of knowing what you're doing. You have that responsibility to your clients to be able to make the right choices for them to ensure that what you're doing is ethical. And that can particularly be an issue with some of the data analytics and AI tools, which have, in some instances, pretty well documented biases against, sometimes against disadvantaged communities or particular groups within society that are underrepresented. So it is important, again, that we understand what the strengths and weaknesses of these tools are, and select something that's appropriate. And if we see that a choice is being made that has ethical implications for individuals or for society as a whole, that we have the capacity as lawyers, as people who are there generally because we believe that the law and the rule of law is important, that we can argue for better choices to be made. Next slide, please. So let's get down to a bit more brass tacks. What will be the key aspects of the experience of being a student in this program? I would say that the main thing to bear in mind when you're thinking about this program is that it has a very solid theoretical element, as has been mentioned already. Abigail and I and my colleagues are experienced researchers who publish widely on these topics in an international context. But I also mentioned that I have a somewhat of a technical background. It's been a while since I wrote code for a living, but I try and keep those skills somewhat up to date. So this program has a significant hands-on dimension that you will not find in many other programs like it. So students who take this program will be building apps, will be using analytics tools. We'll be using the relatively well adopted tools, whether they're specialist legal tools or they're general tools that are available in many commercial contexts, in order to actually ensure that students get their hands dirty and make them happen, get a good understanding of what it's like to actually build something useful with these tools. Now, you may be thinking, oh, don't really have a technical background. How am I going to handle that? That's not something to be concerned about. We're not assuming any technical background. We will guide you through this process. And we're not trying to turn people into expert coders in this particular context. We'll be using tools that are easy to get started with, and we'll be very much moderating the skill level here. The intention is to produce graduates who are capable of going on to something more detailed if that's the way that they want their career to go, but also graduates who are capable of being a bridge between a lawyer who doesn't know anything about the technology and doesn't understand it, and is able to translate that into terms that a real technical expert can then convert into something that works. And that is a career path that there is already, but there will be a huge demand for, because these technologies are becoming ubiquitous, and those kinds of bridges, those translators, are very much needed. But there are other hands-on skills that you'll be learning. This isn't all technical. You'll also be spending the year learning how to apply a method of gathering user requirements known as design thinking, which really centers the human being, centers people's emotions, centers how they feel, focuses on their challenges and helps them to solve their challenges, rather than imposing some sort of external frame of reference on them, which is often what happens with the construction of technical systems. So you'll learn a lot of what people sometimes call soft skills. Now, soft skills are actually hard skills. It's dealing with people is sometimes much more challenging than dealing with computers. But again, this is a set of skills that a lot of lawyers don't have. And this will provide you with a keen advantage in a initial interview context and in a workplace context later, because you can figure out what people really need, not what people think they need. You'll also be spending a lot of time exploring the future of law, the future of lawyering. I've talked already about the way in which technology and AI is changing things and the new kind of questions and issues we're going to have to grapple with that. We're already seeing judges in a variety of different jurisdictions actually using AI to write judgments. And that sounds great, particularly in a context where you've got a huge backlog of cases that need to be resolved. But it brings with it a lot of concerns about accuracy, about bias, and so on. And what does that mean for the skills that lawyers need to have? But there are non-technical issues also, and I've talked about some of those, about globalization, about the focus on diversity, about the rise of concerns around environmental, social, and governance issues. There's a lot of different things that are meaning that the future world of law is going to be very different to the way it has been. I think law has been relatively stable for quite a long time, and a lot of that is now being destabilized. I had a guest speaker coming to one of my undergraduate classes in the last few weeks, and I asked him, what does he think about the process of change and what's going to happen? And he said it's going to happen in small changes initially, and then suddenly all at once. And what I want to do in this program, what we want to do in this program, is to prepare graduates who are ready to get on board with those changes, to surf those waves of change, whether they're small waves or big waves, that you can see that they're coming already and that you're ready to move with them. And in keeping with that goal, I suppose, of building a new and different set of skills and giving you a broader exposure than you might see in many other LLM programs, even ones that look at technology, even ones that look at legal tech, you'll have a wide range of optional modules available to you. So you can, you'll see some of the examples in a little while, but you can tailor your choices to your own particular preferences and interests and your career plans. So you'll have a selection from across all of the other LLM programs within the school. We have quite a wide range, and again, there are world-class programs, but also we have options from the School of Business, particularly from Business Information Systems. So if you feel that you want to be more of a lawyer, you have that choice. But if you feel you want to actually become more of a technologist, that's a route that you want to take in your career, particularly if you're thinking, I actually don't want to be a traditional lawyer, you can really pick up the skills there, which will distinguish you very much from other graduates in the future. Next slide, please, Lisa. And so this is the program itself, and this is what it looks like. So all of this information is available on our website if you want to look at it at your leisure later. But there is a core set of modules. You see them there on the left-hand side of your screen. And I've already, I suppose, given you a sneak preview of what they involve. So we'll be exploring the future of law. We'll be applying design thinking over the course of an entire year. So across the 2 semesters, that really gives you time to get to know the method and to apply it and to gather information, so that you're not under the kind of time pressure you would be if it was just 1 semester. Computation in the law is about data analytics. It's looking at the legal issues that these data analytics tools throw up, but it is also involving the actual construction of some sort of analytics project, which can be something of your own choice, that's developed in collaboration with myself and with Abigail. And then we have a module on digital transformation and access to justice, looking at the opportunities that this digital transformation that we're all living through provides in order for individuals to get better access to justice, but also looking at the possibilities that, in fact, things like the digital divide may mean that some people are, in fact, excluded, looking at the limits to the extent to which digital technology can solve some access to justice problems, and generally just asking whether or not it's true to say that technology is going to fix all of our problems overnight. And I will give you the punchline for that in advance. It's not, but graduates in this program will have a set of skills and competence which will really help them to unpick those issues and to make good, sensible choices as to technologies that are appropriate and avoid ones that are not. As I said, from the optional modules, you can take anything available across our LLM programs. You'll see those in a moment. But I just want to linger for a bit on the list of modules from Business Information Systems. So you'll see there you have the scope to pick up more business-focused and technically focused expertise as well, if that is something that interests you or that you think could be beneficial to your career. Next slide, please, Lisa. From the other LLM programs, we have actually a much longer list than this. We cut this down a little bit because there was just too much. But this will just, if you want to see all of the range, you need to go to our website and have a look at the other programs. But this will give you a sort of flavor of the sorts of things that are available to you over the course of the year. And you can choose from them as you see fit. Some of these might be just your own particular interest, and I think that's actually something that you should do. You should do at least one thing in every, as a graduate student, you should do at least one module that you're just doing because you like it. But if you look at the list there, you'll see that courses like policing or sentencing, for example, there's a lot of digital technology in those in terms of things like surveillance or the use of data analytics to assess sentencing patterns or search for bias. So that could be quite a good combination with the computation module. We have a range of commercial topics if you are thinking of more of a legal advice type career, but just have legal tech as being a string in your bow. You're going to do data protection, you're going to do tech law. You might also want to pick up something on IP, for example, or corporate transactions. That's another mix. It's up to you to decide what it is you want to do. So, you know, that's just an indicative list. There's actually a list that's twice that long if you go through all of the different programs. And you can then tailor what you do to fit with your own preferences and priorities. Next slide, please, Lisa. So I'm hoping that you're, at this point, interested in the program for its own sake because you think it's interesting, but it's also worth thinking about what all of this means in terms of employability or in terms of your long-term career plans. And you can see from the statistics that are presented on that slide that there has been a very significant increase, almost 200%, 177% increase in vacancies in legal tech between 2020 and 2021. That's the most recent set of figures we've been able to get. I am sure that that growth has not slowed down in the intervening period. It's been identified as a key trend for impact from now until 2026, and I don't think it's going to stop suddenly being important in 2026. And you can see that almost half of firms that were surveyed, and I think that was 2022, said that that lack of technology skills is an issue for them. And certainly this has been our experience speaking to legal practitioners. They are concerned about, experienced people are concerned about the lack of skills that they have themselves or that they identify within their firms. And they're also actually concerned about the lack of skills that graduates have. You might be thinking, well, I grew up with technology, I'm comfortable with technology. But what I hear is that a lot of graduates are comfortable with the technology that they're comfortable with and not with other technology necessarily. So they're comfortable with phones and mobile devices, but put in front of more traditional desktop apps or being asked to work on AI or something like that, they're actually out of their depth. So this program, again, is about giving you that comprehensive 360-degree skill set so that you can not just survive, but thrive in an increasingly technological workplace. Next slide, please, Lisa. Yes, so careers in this field. So traditional legal advice roles absolutely, this is a very good way to move into that space. There's a lot of work that's already needed on things like data protection. The AI Act is generating and is going to generate an awful lot of work also in the future. There are other aspects of the regulation of digital technology that we will touch on in the program. And graduates in this program will have a key advantage if they're dealing with those kinds of data-related questions, because they will have a good understanding of how the technology actually works. It's one thing to be advising a client on AI. It's another to be advising a client on AI when one has actually built a large language model tool or built a machine learning tool, which is the kind of thing that you will be exposed to in this program. So that will be an option, that will be particularly an option that is available to graduates who already have a law degree. Those of you who may not want to pursue that career, or people who are coming from another background, so business, STEM, obviously you'll need to have a law degree in order to progress to a qualification as a legal professional, either in Ireland or in another jurisdiction. But there are a wide range of other roles. There are just some mentioned there on the slide: legal technologist, knowledge engineer, project manager, risk manager, legal prompt engineer, which is a job category that really has only existed for a year or two, working with large language models. That's going to be the kind of thing that's really going to become more and more important. And again, having a good understanding of the technology is going to be a huge benefit. Legal management consultant, advising people on their technology choices. These are all other opportunities that could offer satisfying, challenging, lucrative careers, and fundamentally, I think, allow people to design their own path out of the program. So all of these doors will be opened up to you depending on the choices that you make and where your particular emphasis is as a student here. Next slide, please, Lisa. And actually, I will hand over to Lisa at this point. I'm running a little bit out of breath anyway. So Lisa is going to take us through the remainder of the presentation to talk a bit about the formalities of applying and so on to the program, and then we'll deal with your questions afterward. Thanks very much.
Great, thanks, Ronan. So we just have a couple of slides left, and then we'll start answering any questions that you may have. So in terms of entry requirements, the entry requirements for this program are a 2-1 in law or another relevant discipline such as business, computer science, or statistics. If you're unsure as to whether or not your degree is, I suppose, relevant to this subject area, you can send us an email and we'll reply. So I suppose if you're wondering what a 2-1 is in your country, if you check the Global Galway website, you will be able to see what the equivalent grade is for a 2-1 in your country, or you can email us after this webinar and we will be able to tell you the specific grade required for your country. If you don't have a degree in a relevant discipline, in exceptional circumstances, you may still be considered for the program if you have relevant professional experience in law or computer science. And then in terms of how to apply and fees, the EU fees for this program full-time are 8,640, and for non-EU students it is 20,140. Applications are now open for September 2025 intake, and you can visit the University of Galway website to apply. There is no closing date for applications. So what happens is, as soon as you make an application for this program, we will review your application within a few working days and get back to you with an answer. So basically what we do is we continue to process applications until places on the program are full. So we advise you to apply as early as possible in order to secure your place on the program, as we don't know when our application system will close. If you are waiting to receive your exam results, so at the moment you could be in final year of your undergraduate degree. If you're waiting to receive your exam results, you can still apply for the program. And what we will do is we will offer you a conditional offer pending that you meet the grade requirement for this course. And then once you graduate and you get the required grade, once you submit your final exam transcripts, we will change your conditional offer to a firm offer. So once you have a conditional offer, we will hold a place on the program for you in the hope that you will get the grade required once you get your final exam results. So to make your application, you'll submit your exam transcripts if you have them. You'll submit your English language test results. Details on the English language test that you can, I suppose, submit are all on our website. There's a few different ones, including IELTS. You will also need to submit a personal statement, approximately 600 words, on why you think you're suitable for this course and why you want to pursue this course. And then you will also submit a copy of your passport or your birth certificate and a written reference. I suppose if there's any current University of Galway students watching this webinar now, you don't need to submit a written reference and you don't need to upload your exam results. Finally, then, in terms of scholarships, so the official scholarships for September 2025 are yet to be announced by Global Galway. So I recommend that you keep an eye on our postgraduate scholarships website. However, there is a couple of other scholarships that I can mention that will be available next year. So we have our University of Galway Postgraduate Excellence Scholarship, which is for EU students, and it's valued at €1,500. And basically, there's no limit on the number of scholarships we give in terms of postgraduate excellence scholarships. You simply have to obtain a grade of 1-1 or equivalent, and you have to be accepted onto a full-time master's course. And then in terms of, there's also an external scholarship outside of the university called the Government of Ireland International Education Scholarship. This year we have 2 Government of Ireland scholars studying 2 of our LLM programs at the School of Law. One is from Mexico and one is from Iran. The Government of Ireland scholarship gives you a full fee waiver, and it also gives you €10,000 to cover expenses. The applications for that have actually opened today, and the deadline to apply is 5 p.m. on the 5th of March 2025. There may also be other external scholarships available within your country that you're from that you could apply for. After today's webinar, if there's any other questions you want to ask us, feel free to contact Law Postgrad at University of Galway.ie. You can also find Dr. Abigail's and Dr. Ronan's email address on our website, and you can follow the School of Law on social media. So I'll stop sharing my slides now, and if you have any questions, feel free to pop them in the chat. And alternatively, if you like, you can raise your hand and we will allow you to turn on your microphone to ask a question. So I will go through them now. So the first question is from a Mexican lawyer with experience in national security, financial crime, investigation, and fintech. How does this program address the intersection between regulatory frameworks and emerging technologies like blockchain or digital currencies? And another question, how does this program stay updated with rapidly evolving legal challenges in areas like AI governance and digital financial systems? So excellent question. Ronan, could you help with that, please?
Sure. So on the first question first, issues like blockchain or digital currencies crop up in 2 of the modules that I mentioned. So in the Future of Law module, that's actually one of the first topics on the outline that we have for that program. technological disruption in law and legal practice. And one of the things that we'll be looking at in that class is, can blockchain technology transform legal transactions? And similarly, in the computation and law, we'll be looking at blockchain and how it actually, the details of how it operates, and what its potential role might be. And certainly we'll be looking at the regulatory issues that blockchain throws up. These are the kinds of things that I'm interested in myself. I've done some research on blockchain and actually led a project in collaboration with the Clough-Jordan Eco Village here, trying to build a blockchain for a sustainable community. We did actually build a demonstration blockchain technology for that. And if one of the things that you were interested in, it wouldn't be necessary, but you could explore actually building a little blockchain of your own, because we, as I say, we're trying to give people that sort of hands-on skill. So certainly very much looking at those issues in those two modules. As to how the program stays updated with rapidly evolving law, mostly through trying to keep up to date, really, on the part of the teaching staff. So Abigail and I and our colleagues more broadly, we're experts in this field. We're active researchers, so we're constantly keeping on top of what happens. It is quite a changing field in a lot of ways. If just to come back to something that I mentioned earlier, which is the use of generative AI by judges and by lawyers, there are new examples of that practically every week now. So we keep an eye open for those kinds of news stories, and we update each other on them. What I will do sometimes in my teachings, I already teach some of this content at an undergraduate level, is that I ask, well, not just ask, I require the students to produce blog posts on a weekly or a fortnightly basis, so that the students are helping me keep up to date, I suppose, to some extent, but also it helps the students themselves stay up to date. They're helping each other see what's happening, and they're developing a sort of a news network of their own so that they can stay up to date. Because the reality is that new technologies come along all the time, and then this raises new skills needs and new legal questions that lawyers need to stay on top of. So essentially, there's an element of that being the expertise of the staff who are involved in the program, ensuring that students are kept up to date. But really my intention and my goal would be that over the time that you are a student, that you develop yourself the capacity to keep yourself up to date, and that although we will be looking very much at practical issues, and I'm a pretty hands-on person, I think it's also important to have a sufficient theoretical understanding to be able to make sense of these new challenges, so that, you know, 3 years or 5 years after graduation, whatever it is that replaces blockchain or replaces generative AI, whatever new technology we're going to be talking about then, that when it comes along, that you have the sort of intellectual architecture to be able to think about that, and to make sense of it, and to make choices or to provide advice and guidance to your colleagues or to your clients on those issues. So staying updated is, I suppose, a professional responsibility for everyone who's involved in this program.
Great, thanks, Ronan. I hope that answered your question. And the next question is just regarding scholarships, which I think was asked just before I talked about the scholarships slide. And I've put a couple of links into the chat there regarding our international scholarships, and also our external Government of Ireland scholarships. The next question then, I suppose, kind of second class honours lower division, which is a 2-2, satisfy the eligibility to apply for this programme?
So that would be a contextual question. So that would not meet the initial entrance requirements. we would look at the application as a totality. So someone with grades that don't meet the entrance condition on first glance, we would then look to see if they have work experience, if they have some other relevant factors that we should bear in mind. It certainly has happened in the past that we have admitted students who don't seem to meet the grade requirements because they have some other evidence demonstrating that they have the capacity to be a good student.
Great, thank you. And then another question is, I suppose, what is the difference between the part-time and full-time course? Would you be able to complete the part-time course working a 9 to 5 job?
So the core difference between the part-time and the full-time course is that essentially the part-time splits the workload over 2 years. So you're doing half as much work. The timetable, however, remains the same. So the classes are scheduled during the 9 to 5 for the most part. There isn't a virtual or online component. There is sometimes, there may sometimes be, for example, a guest speaker who appears virtually, but in general, it is an in-person, on-campus program. So I suppose the thing to be clear about is that the part-time option is not an evening course version. It's not weekends. You would need to be available at least sometimes during the day. A lot of whether or not that's feasible is going to depend on your particular work situation and the flexibility that you have around hours and your employer. Certainly we have had, this program is new, but in the past we have had part-time LLM students who have had full-time roles, and they've just been able to work out being able to be on campus at the times that they needed to be and still to complete their work responsibilities. So that's going to be a case-by-case question for the individual. The important thing to understand is that the timetable is the 9 to 5 timetable. What the part-time option does is it basically halves the amount of work that you would need to do.
Great, thanks, Ronan. And I suppose it depends on the timetable. The timetable is not normally issued until a few weeks before the program begins. So some people might get the timetable and be very happy that all the modules that they want to study are actually on the same day. They could get lucky, but that's not always the case. They could be spread out over 5 days. So another question, so does the program have an internship?
Not at the moment. There is no internship as such, but that's certainly something that we're looking at.
And then another question is, so is it a 1-year master's? So yes, it's 1 year full-time, or else it's 2 years part-time. And how many places are available?
Enough.
Yes.
We expect to have sufficient places for the level of interest that we get.
Yeah.
Great. And so will there be a waiver for English-speaking countries by providing, so if you are from an English-speaking country, I should have said it on the slide, apologies, you do not need to submit an English language test. Or if you've already studied through English, you also don't need to submit an English language test. So sometimes students mightn't be from an English-speaking country, but they've already completed studies through English. And if that's the case, you do not need to complete an English language test. Another question, great question. So how many hours of lectures a week and how big is the workload?
So you can expect for the full-time, you can expect somewhere in the region of 10 to 12 hours maybe of in-class contact time. The full-time workload is a full-time workload, I suppose. That's what the best way to think about it. In other words, the number of hours in the classroom does not indicate the number of hours that one should be working at it. You should be expecting to put in the region of 35 hours a week into this. There will be reading to do, there will be a certain amount of practical work, there will be writing, there will be a reasonable amount of written work to be submitted, other items and tasks may arise as well. I see questions about things like placement and so on. So we're working on formalizing those kinds of arrangements, but we have a lot of connections to legal practice, to the courts, and to industry. So we may have trips to industry partners or to the courts. There may be other things going on. I suppose how big the workload is in ways a matter of yourself and managing your time. But you should treat full-time as being the equivalent of a full-time job between the hours that you spend in the classroom, the hours that you spend in the library, and the hours you spend doing other things. And the part-time version should be half that, basically. So somewhere around 18 to 20 hours a week.
Great. And another question that we answered earlier, so is there any placement opportunities available? So at the moment, there are no placement opportunities available on the course. And then finally, one more question. However, don't be afraid to ask any more. You can also raise your hand if you wish. So can an international student without a law background apply?
Yes.
Absolutely. We welcome that. The assessment of applications is on a case-by-case basis. So someone who's coming from a non-law background would want to, I suppose, just give an explanation of their particular interest in the program in their personal statement. But as we've said, we would welcome applications from a background such as STEM or business. We think that that's absolutely a route into this, which then produces different career paths forward. Really, a lot of it is about you explaining to us why you think the program is a good fit for you. You do need to bear in mind that in some of this, there is some legal content along with the technical content. So you might find some parts of the course easier than your law graduate classmates, and other parts of the course more difficult. If you're coming from a STEM background, the data analytics might be easier for you, but you'll have to work a bit harder at other things. So just give us the context for that in your application so that we can then decide whether or not we think that you are a good fit for the program and can rise to the challenge.
Great. And another question then, so is a research supervisor required before admission? So the answer is no. This is not a PhD program. This is an LLM Master of Laws, and none of our LLM Master of Laws programs require you to find a research supervisor in advance.
I might just say on that, though, Lisa, that there will be a research component to the program. There is a mini thesis, and there will be a research supervisor in that particular context. So it's not that the program doesn't have a research component, but that's not something that you need to have approved in advance. That will be provided to you as a student once you're enrolled.
Great. And are there exams or are there continuous assessments?
That's going to depend on which modules you take. So if you're taking modules from business information systems, you may end up with exams. The ones that are taught in the law school are likely to be continuous assessment, but it's going to depend on which modules you select.
Great. And can an undergraduate student studying law as part of their BA apply?
Yeah.
Yes, they can. Again, it's going to be a case-by-case decision on students that are, clearly within the entrance parameters. An undergraduate student who's based in Galway, who's doing the BA, probably should think about doing the LLB first, but that depends on their career choices. And I'm happy to talk to individuals who are trying to make up their mind about what is a good fit for them. This isn't a proper forum to get into the nuts and bolts of a particular individual situation, but I'm happy to have that discussion as to what makes most sense. Again, there would be an element of seeing what other subjects the student has taken, whether or not that's a good fit. Somebody who's taking law and IT, for example, in the BA is a good fit for this program. Someone who's not could be a good fit for the program too, but just may have to explain that to us a little bit better. the short answer is yes, but put some effort into the personal statement to make it clear to us why you think that you're someone who's appropriate.
Great. We don't have any more questions at the moment, but we'll hang on for a minute just in case. If you don't want to type your question, you can raise your hand, and if you raise your hand, I will turn on your microphone so you can ask the question. So the application fee, is €35. And when you're making an application, you can actually make an application for 2 different programs. So if you're interested in this LLM and maybe another course at the university, it's €35. It's just the one application fee. So will fees be going up after 2025? So the fees that we have given are for September 2025 intake. There may be a small percentage increase for September 2026. And is there any age limit to join the course? So the answer is no. All of our LLM programs currently at the School of Law have a very, very, very wide age range, right through from people fresh out of college to people with many, many, many years experience. So I won't put an age on it, but the age is very, 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 very wide, extremely wide. So that's not a factor. Is there post-study work visa? So I suppose that depends on which country you're from. So if you're from India, there is a graduate permit scheme where you can stay in Ireland for up to 24 months, and there's visa information on the Global Galway website. But if you want to maybe go, if you want further detail on that, feel free to email the law school after this webinar, and we'll point you in the right direction as to the specific details for your country regarding visa and I suppose a graduate permit scheme as well.
Well, it looks like there's a question about visa expenses and air tickets sponsored through the
Yes.
scholarship.
None of the scholarships that I'm aware of cover any visa expenses or air tickets. Like if you secure depending on what country you're from, if you just secure the Government of Ireland scholarship, you get your fees paid, and then you also get €10,000 to cover expenses. So you could use that €10,000 to cover perhaps your flights. But like some students that I suppose apply for various courses at our university, sometimes they source external scholarships that we're actually not aware of that exist within their home country. So I think we've answered all the questions now, but we'll hang on for a couple of moments. I suppose we're really excited about the first intake of students for this program in September 2025.
Yeah, so thanks to everybody for coming along. It's great to get such a level of interest. As has already been said, we're happy to discuss with individuals if you have particular questions in the chat for the webinar. You'll see contact information has been posted for Abigail and I, and you'll also find our information easily on the university website. So do feel free to get in touch with us by email afterward if you have specific queries, and If you're in Galway, obviously you're welcome to call in, and if you're not, then we can easily set up a quick online chat to go through any questions or issues that you have. Some of the questions we got there were quite detailed about course content, and we can share module outlines and other things with you if you want to get an even better handle on what we're doing. We're really looking forward to starting this program and to helping you, I hope, as our future students, to be in a good place as you set out into, as I said already, an increasingly technological workplace. So thanks a lot for coming along today, or if you're watching the recording later, thank you for your interest. And we look forward to hearing from you, and we look forward ultimately to seeing some or maybe all of you in our classrooms in the future. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, everyone.
Great, thank you.
I see one more question just coming in there. So can we take 2 LLMs at the same time? No, that would not be permitted or advisable. These are full-time programs, and really do require full-time attention.
Great, thanks everyone.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you. Have a good night. Oh, that's just a thank.
Thank you.